Hi everyone, it's Mike here. So everybody knows that I like a little bit of a creative challenge. My friend Linda Simpson has sent me through the post a collection of items in which to create an art project. Now she has got the exact same items, so she's challenged me to create something with the items she sent me, and she's also creating something with identical items over on her YouTube channel. So I'll switch over to my overhead camera and I'll show you the items that Linda sent me. So these are the items that Linda sent me. There's an 8x8 piece of an engineered laminate flooring with texture. You feel it's actually got the texture in there as well, so it actually looks and feels like real wood, even though it's actually what looks like an MDF laminate piece of flooring. But a fantastic substrate to work on. She's also sent me 3 quite thickish cogs. So I don't know whether these have been routed. It doesn't look like they've been laser cut, but they're very, very deep. They're 4 millimeters thick, so that's actually really, really deep stuff. Actually, probably more along the lines of 5 millimeters deep. So quite thick and dimensional as well. So they're really cool. She's also sent this door plate. I did actually pop out the door handle plate bit and the keyhole. So there's that, and also another sheet of laser cut cogs and circles that could be used for dials, that kind of thing. So as you can see, some really cute stuff. So looking at this, obviously I can see cogs, I can see door bits and pieces. So I think I'm going to dust off my rust paste, because I haven't played with it for ages. Okay, so I've popped out some of the cogs from their surroundings, the laser cut ones, and I've created a kind of 3D cluster, but I've also embellished it by going into my Tim Holtz kind of metal findings and mixed media junk drawer and found some other bits and pieces from Happy Mail, some things that I've purchased, and added those onto the piece of laminate flooring too. Now none of this is stuck down. It's literally just placed so that I've had a play just to get the best kind of arrangement, the best kind of cluster that I possibly can. So one of the things that I need to do now is to take it all apart again and get it all glued down. But knowing me, I'll probably forget where I put things. So the best thing to do is to take a picture of the arrangement as you've done, as best you can. There we go. And then I've got that for reference, and I can put this so I can see it when I'm trying to put everything back together again. So what I need to do now is to start taking it to pieces and then start layering it so I know where everything's going to be. So I've started taking the layers off. I've just moved them over to the top. That's pretty much good enough for me to be able to just lift things up and stick them down again so I know where the placements are going to be. So to glue them down, I'm just going to use a small bottle of Ranger Glossy Accents as my glue. So all I really need to do now is just to lift it up, put a little bit of glue underneath, and then literally drop it back down in place again, and that should hold it in fairly in position. So I can just do the first layer like so, and then that should be enough. So if I just lift these off, they're going to be pretty easy to remember where everything went. So rather than you sit there watching me do the boring bit of gluing everything down, I'll pop this onto fast forward so that you can just watch it in a speeded up manner. Just to make sure I've got it straight, or as straight as I can manage, of course. Okay, so I think that's everything pretty much stuck down in the places that we had them on the original photograph. So obviously I'm going to wait now, or going to need to wait now, until all of this glossy accent glue has dried before I can even start to add any colour. But as you can see, it's got some terrific 3D and texture to that project already, and I haven't even added any paint yet. So while I was waiting for it to dry, I just started thinking of adding on some faux rivets, and before you knew it I actually started adding on quite a few, and I thought to myself, if I don't stop myself and turn the camera on, then you lot are going to get really cross with me, because you won't have seen where I've added, or how I've added on those faux rivets. So that's basically what I'm doing now. They're just self-adhesive pearls, and all I'm doing is just adding them on to some of the areas just to give them those kind of faux rivet look. It is going to get painted, so it doesn't really matter what colour you use. So if you pretty much have some colours that you don't like, in my case these silver ones, and want to use up what you've got rather than use your bestie ones, then use those colours that you don't like, because you're going to paint them. They're going to get covered with paint. So why not make them work for you and use up your least favourite colours on these little like detail areas. So we've got some on there, some on there. I think I'm going to add a couple more. I'll definitely put one on top of here, because that's just crying out for a rivet as a final kind of decoration. So we've got rivets up there, we've got rivets all the way down there, we've got rivets on, or screws, whatever you want to call them, on there. Should I put some on here? Oh, go on. You can never have too many, really. So let's just put one on there. These are ones that I've had in my stash for years that I don't use very often. So I thought, well, why not make them earn the keep? And I think maybe one on top of there as well. So I wonder how many of you were thinking that I should put one there, maybe one in the middle to cover that hole. then you get, it's probably, there we go. Just those tiny little details. Maybe. That just help it with that look. There we go. Me likey. So there we go. There's the detail that you can see. Lots of nice deep 3D texture on that project so far. So I'm now definitely going to put the scalpel down, put those away, and allow that to dry for a good hour before I do anything else to it. So it's actually now the next day, and as you can see, everything has now dried completely. After adding those rivets last night, I decided to add a few more. So one there, one there, one there, one there, one each on the ends of the fancy label plate, also onto the escutcheon, and I also added some of those faux rivets into the corners as well, just to give it a little bit more, and I think I added one or two just around some of the cogs as well. So now it's all dry and it's ready to start painting. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a little polypropylene mat underneath it, and I've got some indigo blue black gesso. So I'm going to give the whole thing a coat of black gesso. Now, because I've got some areas underneath there where I'm going to find it really difficult to actually get into, what I'm going to do as well is I'm going to mix up a mixture of gesso and water into this little spritz bottle here. So I'm going to do that first. So all I'm going to do is just take some black gesso on a spatula and then feed that in. Maybe do half a dozen or so. Easier if I just poured it in with a funnel, because it is quite liquidish. It's like liquid licorice. Yummy. So just pour some in. I'm not making a huge amount, but just enough that I can use as like a spritzer. Try and grab any dribbles, and I should imagine at that probably liquid enough just to actually pour it straight from the bottle, but never want to make life easy for myself. That should do it, I think. Just grab a wet wipe. Excuse me reaching. There we go. Multi-purpose baby wipes. Ideal for everything. And the occasional baby use. It just clears that neck of the bottle straight into the bin, and then I can just spritz in they don't need a lot. And then just give it a shake. That should do us. I'm hoping for the time being anyway. Just clean that spatula off as well. And I can put that back away in my pen pot or spatula pot. And then let's try and find a brush. Now, stupidly, see, I don't really look after my brushes, and I know I should do. And when I went away recently for a long weekend, I left some brushes in some water and forgot that they were there. So of course I've come back to find they're not in the best of condition. But I'm sure we've all done it. So Okay, so I'll try and get in as much as I possibly can to all the little nooks and crannies with the brush. Where I can't get in with the brush, that's where the little spritzer bottle is going to come in handy. So this will probably need a couple of coats of the black gesso. So I will get started and then go into fast forward mode with a little bit of music, nice little classical relaxing music that I know you all like. Then you can watch the process, and then what I'll do just before I go into fast forward is I'll just grab that spritz bottle so you can see me actually using it. Now you see it's probably too thick there. So let's add some more water. That should do. It's trial and error. All spritz bottles are different. The nozzles are always different, so the actual viscosity of your paint will need to match your nozzle. I'll just keep on adding water until, let's see if this Tim Holtz bottle actually does work. Yeah, I'm having to pull the lid back up on each one after each pump. So I'm just going to angle it in. Not ideal. You know, perhaps these Tim Holtz bottles aren't really useful for doing this kind of thing, unless it's really runny, which you don't really want your gesso too runny. Try again. Sometimes the cheaper bottles work out to be better. And I'll just go over and let that paint just drip through. To get down in those holes, because it's going to pool and reservoir a little bit, which is what I didn't really want it to do. But you've just got to do and work with what you've got. Each material, paint, will work in a different way because it all has its own chemistry and its own properties. And part and parcel of doing kind of mixed media stuff like this is learning how your materials react, how your resources, how each different paint works differently, because the Tim Holtz stuff will work differently to the Diane Reevely stuff and the Dina Wakley stuff, and also with your golden paints or Royal Langnickel, Windsor and Newton. Newton Ridley. A little joke there for our English people, my English viewers, who should get the reference. So this is just a process of literally just going through, and these bottles aren't particularly very useful. Like I said before, sometimes the cheaper bottles are better that you just get from pharmacies or your local supermarket. But these do help just to get into all those little nooks and crannies that your paintbrush wouldn't necessarily be able to get into. And then once you've got that liquid in there, you can pounce and spounce to your heart's content. So, right, you've seen me do that. Cue music, and I'll see you when I've finished doing my first coat. Okay, so we're back. So first layer done, and of course we need to get it nice and dry so that we can pick it up and look at it from all angles to see if there's any gaps in the black gesso. So off we go. Okay, so what I've just done there is I can see where there are still some shiny spots. Now that's usually where the majority of the water or the liquid has gathered. So all I did was I went in with my brush and just swirled it around while I still had the heat gun going. Now, one of the things that you really must remember, and this is, you know, just a fundamental thing when using or when doing a mixed media project where you've glued metal down onto your project, is that when you heat it, when you heat set it, obviously that metal is also going to heat up. So just be careful when you're handling it directly after heating it, because those metal finding bits will be very hot. For example, the key, those metal cogs that I stuck down there, the handle, that faucet knob that's in there, will get extremely hot once you stick that heat gun on it. Just clear up some of that excess from the mat. I'm not going mad because I'm going to be going back in again in a second. So as you can see, I can now pick that up and have a look around all different directions and see if there are any other bits, some bits on the edges that I've missed. But I think I've pretty much got all of the nooks and crannies in there, so that now the majority of that is dry because of the heat gun. I can now go back in and give it a second coat, which is what I'll do now. And once again, because you've already seen what I've done once, I'll just jump to the end where I've given it that full final coat. Okay, so one of the things to remember when brushing on black paint is that when you're going really quickly and you're going over raised texture, be careful that when you're doing brushing movements towards you that you don't end up flicking black paint all over your trousers or t-shirt. No guessing what just happened to me. Right, okay, so that's pretty much done as far as I'm concerned. I'm happy with that. Now, somebody once said to me a while ago that they always had difficulty doing these kind of problems because they never knew when to stop. Well, the trick to that is of course you stop when you think you've done enough. So when you're happy with it, that's when you stop. So I'm happy with this at this stage. I know I can still see some shiny areas where the paint maybe still a little bit wet underneath, but also that could be where the glue is also coming through the paint as well. So because I used glossy accents, you know, there might be a little bit of that glossiness showing through the paint where I spritzed it, so it's a little bit thinner, but I can live with that. So this is still hot, so that handle's still hot. So I'm going to leave this to cool down for about 10-15 minutes before I even attempt to add any colour onto the project just yet. Okay, so just while I was drying it again, I found a few other little spots that I wasn't really happy with, but I am now. So I've done, I'm ready, I'm going to add my next colour. So I'm going to be adding some of this rust paste. So this is from Viva Decor. This is a brand new tub, as you can see. It's lovely. Thick rust texture paste. So what we can do now is start to dry brush over the top. Now this will take a while to do because I'm not going to go mad and make it completely crusty. I want some of that black to show through underneath, so I'm going to go over, literally just dry brushing, which will leave that black in areas showing through as an undercoat, if you like. So again, this will take a little while to do, so I'll start off and then look at that. Love it, loving it already. So I'll start off and then I will go into fast forward mode, and you can see me building up the rusty texture. So my rusty undercoat, if you like, is now pretty much dry. So what I want to do is to add a little bit of bling into it now. So I've got a pot of the indigo blue Miss Moneypenny copper metallic paint, and I've just given it a bit of a shake up, so there's going to be some sticking just to the underside of my lid there, and also not as much as I thought there would be actually, but I'm just going to grab some of this and just put it onto my craft mat, and then I'm going to just do a little bit of dry brushing just to add a little bit more of that kind of coppery rusty texture, but this will be a little bit more blingy and shiny, so just adds an extra, can you see? Just adds a little bit of extra dimension to the project. It's actually bringing out some texture from that plate on the escutcheon plate. It just adds, although it's not altering the colour dramatically, it's just adding in some real nice shine, a little bit of glamour to the project, if you get what I mean. It's just what it needed. So just keep on going until, well, I'm just going to keep on going until I'm happy that there's enough of that glitz, kind of that shine, just showing through. That basic coat of the rust has just been knocked back a little bit now in favour of that shine, and that ain't a bad thing. That's it. Loving that. Oh, look at that now. What a beaut. Well, I think so anyway. And again, the same question pops up, is how do you know when you've done enough? Same answer as before. When you're happy with it, and only when you're happy with it. Loving that. But I do want to add just one other little colour to it. I'm not going to go mad this time, but love that. Love it, love it, love it. Okay, let me get that dried and then I'll be right back to put the finishing touches to it. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to add a little bit of a verdigris effect to this. So to find the right colour, I had a look at my archival links. Now I knew there was one from Wendy Vecchi in there called Garden Patina, which is a kind of nice verdigris colour. So, but I need a paint. So when I had a look at my collection of paints, the Dina Wakeling Media Turquoise seems to be the paint equivalent of that similar kind of copper oxide Garden Patina verdigris colour that I want. So this is what I'm going to use next. I'll put that ink away. I've never found a paint called copper oxide. So if there's any of those companies out there that do paints that want to maximise on the steampunk market, then this would be a really good colour to market as copper oxide. Also, brass coloured paint. I've had a word with my friends at Indigo Blue who have promised me that they will do a brass paint because I need one. Right, I'm not going to go mad with this. I'm literally just going to pick out, because this is a matte paint, it's not a metallic. So I'm literally just going to create some a few highlights around the bottom of the project. Just dry brush, mostly actually, into that background, just to put a bit of that colour into the blackish areas. So just lightly dry brush into there. And when I say dry brush, I mean kind of dry brush. Just in those kind of underneath areas. And again, it just helps to lift it a little bit. Just a real small amount. And where I've gone a little bit heavy with copper paint there, just tone that down a little bit. It's actually drying on the brush really, really quickly. That's better. You don't need a lot of paint, you really, really don't. So all you're doing is just giving a little hint . Catch the corner there. I'm hoping that the camera's actually picking this up as a true colour and not kind of watering it down much. Still got that lovely shine from that copper. There's not a lot really you can talk about while doing something like this, because you just tend to get lost in it. That's what I love about doing projects like this. You can literally just lose yourself in the process, especially when it all starts to come together as this one is. A little bit more, just top there. And you know what? Brush down. Okay, I'm going to dry that off and then I'll be right back. So there you go. There is my finished mixed media project. Loving it, loving the colour. So that's my cogs and keys with all the bits and pieces and some extras thrown in that Linda has sent me. So don't forget, Linda's also creating a project using the same materials that she sent me in hers as well. So pop across to Linda's channel. You'll find her link in the description area below this video. And I hope you've enjoyed watching this process and me putting it all together. I've enjoyed doing it. It's taken my mind off other stuff, which has been absolutely perfect. So thank you for joining me today, and I hope you'll join me again real soon. Bye for now. I'd like to say a huge thank you to all of my angels, because without you, these videos would not be possible. Thank you.